Okay, welcome to another spray sealing video. I'll be spray sealing some scenes with the UV resistant clear acrylic coating. It's UV, but I don't believe the UV really makes things absolutely light fast, and people have asked questions about that in the past. The scenes that I'll be doing today, this is a glossy spray and a clear spray. And I'll be spraying my glossy cardstock scenes. I'm going to save another video that are done on matte and surfaces like satin for my matte spray. Okay, so that being said, just a quick note on this one right here. This scene right here is fairly deep and saturated still as far as intensity and value goes, kind of with the end result pre-spraying. They're largely Marvy inks, which are a little bit more kind of saturated and deeper in values when dry. Some inks, when you use them in the layering quantity like I do, they dry to a dull sheen, but you can still revitalize the look of a freshly stamped card by just spray sealing it. So spray sealants like this are the great equalizer to kind of the overall end result appearance, just if you spray them. Some people have asked about this handle right here. This is just like a quick spray handle, or I don't know, you can just call it if you're looking for something like this, it's I don't know, spray paint can holder or something like that. Easy grip, they call them all kinds of different things depending on the brand, but I find it's easier to apply things with, especially if you're doing a lot of this. Okay, I'm going to be very careful about the black imagery on here because it is in VersaFine black, and the VersaFine black is an oil-based ink. So I have a tendency to think that if I spray it too thickly right off the bat, that ink can go back into solution and it can get a little bit blurry. So if I'm spraying over imagery that's stamped in VersaFine or an oil-based or solvent ink, I want to give it a quick spray to seal it off, and then I can give it a thicker spray after it's been set. And setting it doesn't take a long time. You just want to give everything kind of smooth, even coats, okay? You don't want to hold in any one place, otherwise you'll get kind of a big blob of this sealant, and it might have a tendency of dripping on you. So this, just in general, it really brings out the beauty and saturation of the colors a lot. Now this one, like I said, looked pretty good as is, so not too bad. So not a big change there. Okay, this one right here is the same thing. It's done in Marvy inks. Fairly high degree of existing saturation pre-spray. I haven't done this in a long time. It's either been really kind of breezy outside, and you don't want to do this in like high wind. There's a little bit of a breeze now, but and also we went through a heat wave here, so I finally have a chance on this day. It's a little bit of a stronger saturation up there, I can tell immediately. I don't know if it's showing that kind of degree of saturation change, which was fairly subtle, but I can see it from here. Okay, I think I'm going to try squirting it in here, and not too much on that VersaFine imagery. Well, I'll give it a quick spray over like that. But on some of the pieces that I'll be spraying right here, I'm going to break up some of my cards into we'll do 2 different batches here. One of the things I had been doing is on some of these videos, I just try to spray so many of them, and then I stacked the cards, and then they kind of stuck to each other, and I ruined a couple, or I don't know, not a couple, but several scenes by doing that. But anyways, you see that kind of sheen on there? Now that, like I said, this is already glossy cardstock, but it did bring out some of the saturation, and little things like little details in here with gel pens really stand out a little bit more when you spray seal it, because the saturation and the intensity and the value changes get a little bit more extreme, so things like highlighting kind of stand out a little bit more so as a result. This one is really subtle. I have a little bit of a white paint pen up there in the sky and some yellow sparkles, form of specular light reflections down in the water. Okay, so these are drying pretty fast. Okay, now these ones, I'm curious about this one quite a bit. This one is alcohol inks on photo paper. I have a tendency to think that alcohol inks could potentially go back into solution too. The impressions are all made with dye-based inks, so I don't have to worry about those ones. Those are water-based, but as far as the coloring goes with the alcohol inks, if I spray it too thick, I think that could potentially put those inks back into solution. And when it comes to alcohol inks, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it would even, I don't know, add to the effect. I don't know. But the inks, as far as alcohol inks too go, when they dry, they look pretty good. They don't tend to kind of fade out. But I have used some of the white pigment ink here in terms of that kind of misty, foggy look. And I need to be really careful about applying too thick of a coating with a spray too soon, because it'll just make that disappear. So I want to give it a quick spray from distance just to try to seal that off. And I don't think I'll be needing too much of this either. The alcohol inks look a little bit more saturated. I'll be very careful in here where I've used the most amount of that white pigment ink, just in a light amount of coverage to give it that misty, kind of foggy feel. It's kind of light diffusion. Okay, so that wasn't a big change there, and I think that's all I want to do. I think it looks pretty good. I don't know. I think what happens too is the alcohol inks and the dye-based ink impressions, alcohol ink coloring and dye-based ink impressions, sometimes they can have kind of this, I don't know, an unrelated type of amount of coverage. They look like different medias, not really merging and harmonizing together as much as, you know, I'd ideally want them to. So a spray sealant like this, which will give them kind of a uniform related cover sheen or spray, that can have kind of a unifying effect potentially. Now, I didn't spray this too thickly. If I want to go over it more, I could, but I'm afraid of losing that little misty haze in there, which is so important in the scene. So I give it a little bit of a heavier spray on the perimeter where I didn't use so much of the white pigment ink. Alright, so far so good. This one's another example of the alcohol inks on photo paper. And again, a lot of that mist and kind of the center area where there's a lot of lighting, so I'll concentrate my spray on the perimeter for the most part. And just spray in short little bursts like this. And I can see the colors getting darker and more saturated when I do that, which is good. So just remember to kind of adjust your spray coverage, because this is almost like, you can almost think of this as like another medium, you know, that you're applying to your pieces, and it's affecting the overall end result. Okay, now this one right here, oh, it's getting really breezy here. I might have to stop for a while. This one right here is done in probably Memento and Ranger Distress inks. You can see how kind of dull of a sheen this is, okay, in terms of the drying. It's not quite as noticeable when you do it on a matte paper, because matte papers soak in a lot of the media when you're using it, and it's not quite apparent because it already is a matte surface, so inks will dry matte, but it really comes to kind of out in a glossy cardstock format as far as kind of the finish on them. So that being said, you could spray inks on a matte surface as well, and you'll get the benefit of what the spray can do in terms of the saturation and value. Okay, so let me go halfway on this one, and then halfway on this one. I think that's a VersaFine too right there in the black, so I need to be careful about that one. But let's just see what a difference this can make here. See that? left-hand side, it's quite a difference, isn't it? Okay, so I'm hitting it kind of hard up top, okay? And down below, in those VersaFine impressions, kind of lightly, okay? I could seal it off and then hit it harder, but I think I'll just leave it at that. Okay. So look at that ink and that saturation right up there, that color glow that's working in there. Okay, this one's really wet because I really saturated it heavily. Okay. Look how beautiful that is, though. It's the great equalizer, I'm telling you. I wouldn't discount what this could potentially do for your pieces. Okay, now a lot of, I don't know, Memento or Ranger inks on this one. I can't remember. I think this foreground right here is VersaFine, but this is really going to benefit this top area in here where it kind of dried to that, again, that dull sheen, okay? I love all those inks, okay? But if I want the saturation, I need to spray them. Okay, this one's a half-page seam. We'll do the comparison between left and right. So let's go. Now I put a lot of that white pigment ink around the moon, so I want that real kind of hazy, illuminated, soft illumination in there, so I'm not going to spray with that. Alright, it's getting really windy here. Okay, let's try to get down in this bottom portion. Let's go with the right side. Look at that glow on those rocks kind of being revealed. In terms of the ink layering and saturation in there. So I'd say we increase the value probably by a good 5 to 10%. That's making it darker. And in the intensity range, I'd say we've increased some of those areas by 15 to 20%. Now, like I said, when you do these inks, it's not that they faded out, they just dry to a dull sheen on them, like there's a little bit of a kind of a hazy frost on it. But like staining wood or something like that, it brings out that saturation of the grain. On doing something like transparent dye-based inks or alcohol inks on paper, it really brings out the depth of those as well. Okay, let's go for a couple more here. Let's do this one right here. This one's using a scene, a tree from Moon and the Baker. Really fun scene to do. Real experiment. I'm going to put this horizontal. It's really a vertical scene, but we can see it better on this video this way. Okay, let's start down. Okay, I don't have to worry about anything here in terms of black imagery. I didn't use the VersaFine or any kind of solvent ink on here, so let's get the bottom half, okay? This one really lost a lot of the depth of saturated colors here. And again, but I did use the white pigment ink on here, so I'm going to be careful about that. Actually, let's go top and bottom. I'll go top. I need a new holder right here. This holder's kind of coming undone. Okay, let's take a look at this from top and bottom, or left side, right side. See if you can see the difference in saturate. Can you tell the difference between the left and right side here? It's a lot more kind of saturated over here, and here over here it's kind of like a dull type of look. So let's flip that over and let's spray the other portion of it. This one's really going to benefit. I mean, they all benefit from it, but some just more than others.
love nature.
Not into the wind. Except when I'm inside looking outside at the wind or something. Or unless I need to fly a kite or something like that. Okay, let's try... Oh, let's try this one right here. This one's a huge one. Okay, talk about kind of needing to be a little bit wary of some imagery on here. Some of it's kind of solvent against that white pigment ink. We don't want to turn that, not solvent ink, but the oil-based ink of the versifying trees right here, the darker trees on the perimeter. We don't want those going back into solution, and we don't want to lose the white or the white light beams, not kind of, but white beams there, which could happen. But you can use that to your advantage too. You can spray a little bit around the sides, and then these beams will kind of dissipate out on the perimeter, which could kind of add to that end effect. I like doing that anyway. I like having it stronger at the source of light and kind of fading out towards the end, or dissipating. Alright, this is starting to drive me nuts. My drawing scenes here are starting to flip around, so I need to do this fairly quick. Okay, it's really making those white beams kind of disappear. So let's hit it just with a light coating like this from distance. Okay, now if you do lose the beams too much, you can always go back over the spray and kind of re-establish them a little bit. But then I would kind of give it a light spray again, so you can kind of do this in phases. You don't have to see it like, oh my gosh, I lost everything. It's gone forever. You can just reapply it and then spray it again and then seal some of that pigment ink in between two layers of acrylic spray. But you might have to do that a few times. I knew some illustrators that used to use a lot of spray and do some different types of effects with kind of like oil paints spreading out in between, sandwiching in between layers of acrylic spray, and it was part of their technique. So anyways, but hopefully you can see some of that deeper blue types of saturations and intensity. But again, the wind is kind of kicking up a little bit, so I'll break this up into kind of multiple videos. This is the